Next item on the docket. Wait, why am I typing wish list? I need to type notepad. Notepad. Wow, wish list. Let's just, before we rank them, we'll rank them at the bottom, okay? Let's talk about things that are in the game that we don't want in the game no more. So, number one, obviously, recolored. I'm not even gonna change the spelling. Recolored store mounts. That's probably the first one. But really though. Guild master loot option or tradable personal loot. Now this one I am a little, now this is not number one. I'm just writing down things that come into my head. So many people read this and they have a lot of bad takes. Let me explain them. So when people see master loot, they go, no! Someone's gonna ninja my pug! That's not what this means. You can only enable guild master loot in a raid that is 80% guild members. No, Tommy is not going to just change the looting to master loot at the end of your pug and take all the gear. It's not going to happen. Okay? Concern number 2. What? I have personal loot now. And this applies to both of them. Well, I guess I should say fully tradable personal loot. Okay, so the guild I'm in now, it would suck if I had to give up an upgrade. So if everything's tradable, then everyone's going to master loot everything. Or also, if master loot's available, they're going to master loot. Hey, guys, back before guild master loot was a thing, a lot of guilds actually used personal loot anyway. Personal loot was used before guild master loot was removed. There's guilds right now, most guilds, where you do not have to trade your upgrades. If you get a tradable item that's an upgrade for you, you do not have to trade it. That's most guilds. I don't understand people freaking out and saying, no, they shouldn't have all loot be tradable from personal loot. Because if you raid in a guild right now that doesn't make you trade your upgrades when they're already tradable, what the fuck makes you think that they're going to make you trade them if they make all of them tradable? It's illogical. Obviously, guilds would not change if you change this. Whatever guild you're in right now, if you find a guild where you don't have to trade your gear, then you won't have to. Like, yes, obviously, if you're in a guild and they treat personal loot like master loot, yeah, you know what sucks? Looting an upgrade, but then it's a bigger upgrade for someone else. I guess that can suck. That's a weird system, right? But you know what else sucks even way more? Is when you loot an item on like the second boss on Mythic and it sucks for you and it's best in slot for your friend, but because you don't have 2 trinkets that are Mythic eye level, you can't, or 1 trinket, you cannot trade that to him, and that item is ruined forever. Probably one of the first 10 Mythic items your guild got, gone. It doesn't matter. You'll never use it, right? Now, you could argue that's a problem with tuning, like all trinkets should be an upgrade, I guess, but then they can't really be unique. They're going to turn into stat sticks again, so I promise. There's a bigger problem, and I'm not talking world first level, by the way. In a way, I kind of don't want either of these things. Even though I do, I don't. Because do you have any idea how unbelievably degenerate our heroic week splits would be if there was master loot or fully tradable personal loot? We would do 30 raids. Right? So I really hope they could enable this while preventing that somehow. I don't fucking know. Because it's not prevented now, it's just inefficient now. We do all the work now, it's just extremely inefficient. Okay, so I'm not saying I want this. I'm talking about for the, like, community. Both of these are great. Because loot is going to people that you don't want it to go to. And then if you want to argue that, like, oh, well, like, loot should just go to everyone. It should be free. Okay, that's fine. I guarantee you, if you think that, you already raid in a guild where you can keep all the loot you get. And I think you are being very paranoid to think that, like, your guild would suddenly just become this evil entity that gave loot out and you didn't get to keep. No, dude, your guild's loot rules aren't going to change. All fully tradable personal loot would do is improve your experience. You would be able to trade items to people that you don't need, and they would be able to trade you items that they don't need, even if they're untradeable at the moment. This is just it's just an unbelievably better loot system. Now, a lot of people, again, will bring up that, like, oh, well, this will just make the race. Guys, stop worrying about the world first race. I get it's a fan spectacle, but I'm not going to sit here and make this about what I want as a world first raider. You want to know how many people are legitimately competing for world first? It's legit like 50 people. It's like 60 people total in the entire fucking game, okay? I'm not going to make this about me. I'm trying to do my best, which is why I'm asking you all about it, how this will affect the community, because that's much more important than us, right? Which is why global release will be on here somewhere. But you know where it will be? Fucking all the way down here, because I want it so bad, but I know they'll probably never give it. And even if they do, it will probably negatively affect the community more than it will positively. It will affect 60 people in the absolute best fucking way possible. And probably anyone who raids when the raid first comes out. And that's it. It's going to affect more people negatively than that. They're going to have some regions, if there's a global release, are going to have their reset time right in the middle of their raids instead of in the morning when no one's playing. I promise you there will be hundreds, if not thousands of people negatively affected by that. And roughly 60 people who will have a better World First Race experience. Okay? So that's why global release will be mentioned as a wish list, but that's more just for me. That's a little cherry on top for myself, because there's no way in the grand scheme of World of Warcraft that is like a top issue. It just isn't. It's a top issue for people who have clout on Twitter and have a very popular tournament. Not to say it doesn't need to be mentioned, but it just needs to be all the way down there. By the way, do you guys agree with my guild master loot and tradable personal loot take? Yes or no? Also, keep remembering to say yes too, because what happens a lot of the times is the haters are very loud and they're like, no. But like, I'm pretty sure this is just good for the fucking game. And if you don't, by the way, I don't like devalue your opinion. It's fine to disagree. Everyone's got an opinion. It's totally fine to disagree with me. I'm wrong constantly. It's part of my job. Right? If you guys disagree, that's fine. I'm almost certain that this would be a good thing for the game. And I think your worry about it ruining your experience is based, I think it's paranoia. I don't think it would actually affect you the way you think it is. Because if you really care about that, I promise you're in a situation where this would not affect you, but it would just so unbelievably affect everyone else better. And I'm not even talking like I said, I am almost dreading this. I am almost dreading these being do you guys know how bad it will be for me in Heroic Week? It'll be the worst week of my life. I will hate this. But I know it's the best thing for sure for farm and for Mythic, man. Dude, do it in Mythic. Or like Mythic only Guild Master loot. I'd be okay with that. Okay. In my opinion, okay, I'm not ranking them, but this is just the next thing that comes to my mind. Cross, Faction, Rating, and Mythic Plus. I'll just repeat my take that I've said a bunch of times because this is probably good enough to make a YouTube video out of it, and I just want to repeat it. In lore, every single raid and content patch, we are working with the opposite faction. Why can we not do it in game? It makes no sense. Imagine if Apex Legends, when they came out, it was a super big hit. It was like one day before you learned about it, or basically on the day. Great marketing. Other companies learned from it. Imagine if they released their game and when you first watched the trailer, it was like, and there's all these different champions and it's Battle Royale 3v3 and you can res your teammates. Remember how transformative that was? Now just fucking imagine the next slide comes over and it's like, and here's our new system. They're called, I don't know, something close to faction. Like squads. And when you first launch the game, you just arbitrarily pick one squad. And guess what? You can't ever play with the other one. It'd be like, in 2021, it would be like, wait, what? Like, what? Why on earth would you ever put that in your game on purpose? I get it. It's a novelty in WoW. I get why factions were important, but dude, in reality, they haven't been important in a long time. There's very few people with a fucking Horde or Alliance flag in their room that are going to throw a fit if you can play with the opposite faction. But even to those people, man, if you were upset about that, wouldn't you be upset about that anyway? If you're real, like, Horde versus Alliance guy, you like world PvP on purpose or something, wouldn't you already be fucking fuming that every single raid that comes out, we work together? Like Horde and Alliance work together all the time? Do you just like pace in your room when you think about that? Right? It's like, it's already there, dude. The reality is, in 2021, restricting your player base to only play with a certain amount of people is a bad system. It's bad. Now, it can be done in PvP. People are mentioning mercenary mode. That's not really what mercenary mode is. Mercenary allows you to queue as Alliance. That's not the same as being able to play Arena with someone from Alliance, right? It's not the same. In Arena, in Mythic Plus, and in raids, you should be allowed to queue with, raid with, and play with people of the opposite party. Now, I don't think factions should be removed. And I don't think it ever will be, so I don't think it's something you should argue. I think factions are something that is core to WoW. However, I think there can still be faction-based lore. I think there can still be world PvP. But when it comes to actually doing the content, which we're going to get into later, that most WoW people play the game for, there's just absolutely no reason that you can't play with the opposite faction. And it actually negatively affects a lot of people. Alliance guilds, it's impossible for them to recruit. It's impossible for them to convince someone to come over from a Horde guild and pay, you know, $100 or $50 in a transfer to even come raid with them for a chance of being in their guild. You know how hard that is? Imagine if you wanted to trial someone for your guild on Alliance, they could just play on Horde. They don't have to transfer over. Think about how many more guilds would thrive, you know? Now, I love 20-man raids in WoW. It's my favorite raid size in any game. I understand why lower ones, like Final Fantasy being 8, it's a different experience. It's great. But WoW 20-mans are great. I don't think they should lower that. But, man, it really makes it hard to maintain 20-mans if people in your player base are leaving and recruiting is as much of a nightmare as it is right now, okay? It should be easier, and it really hurts people. I can tell you right now, if you could raid Horde or Alliance, half of our guild would be Alliance races, or more. But we're not going to be, right? Look at the Hall of Fame. It's like they've built up this Horde versus Alliance thing with Hall of Fame. Look, man, it doesn't have to be like that. It's outdated. But transfers make a lot of money. Are they going to make that same amount of money? No. No, guys, never, ever, ever make that fucking argument. Never make the argument that they make the game fucking noticeably worse so they lose hundreds of thousands of players because they want people to pay more in services to transfer realms. That's fucking ridiculous. They would make so much more money, and they know they would make so much more money if you could raid cross-faction, man. That is just, that's like a kindergarten level IQ take. Don't ever do that. I would argue that they would actually make a fucking killing. They would actually make more via those services if they enabled this. Because you know what half my guild would do? No clue about yours. You know what mine would do? Half of my guild and me would transfer and make Alliance characters, no matter how much it cost. They would make a fuck ton of money. To imagine thinking they would make less is fucking crazy. Like, okay, yo. Someone said something, and I wasn't even planning on talking about this today, but it's such a good thing. Account-wide everything. When you start a new expansion or a new patch, if you don't wait 3 weeks, don't wait 4 weeks, don't wait till the 0.5 patch, don't wait till the next patch, don't wait till the next expansion. If there is a new system in the game, you should, before you even implement said system, have it in place to where you are unlocking things for your whole account at the same time. It should be the second meeting you have about this. First meeting, what's the concept? How do we implement it? Okay? And there's probably some more meetings after that to finalize the product. Okay, meeting before you even begin designing it. How do we make this easy for people to get it and experience it on their alts? There's no downside. Like, people who are playing alts are probably your best customers because they're people who like your game so much they want to play it more on other things after they've experienced it. You know what those people don't want to do? Do the monotonous grind again to play the thing that they've already done. They want to get back into the action and they want to play those characters, and you just can't, you're just not letting them do it. I don't know if I really need to say too much on this, but I mean, and I don't even need to name examples. You all know what I'm talking about. Like this. Okay, I'll give a few examples. This expansion, you start Shadowlands. You do the Maw scenario. Why the fuck would you ever need to do that again? Like, why? From the jump, from day one of Shadowlands, why would you ever have to do the Maw intro again? Why would you ever have to do the Torghast intro again, right? You know all this stuff because you've done it, right? I'm sure there's a lot more examples. Like, I mean, essences are probably the best example. No account-wide essences was miserable. Having to farm rep on... Why would you do, like... I mean, it's been a long time and they fixed it, but, like, you all get the point. I don't need to, like, fucking go on a million times. All right, what else did I miss? I mean, there's a lot more, but... Oh, tier sets. Tier sets are weird. So people in WoW like to complain about borrowed power because borrowed power is just a trigger word now. Borrowed power is something that people say when they're like just rumbling through all the things they hate about WoW, but the central of it is like they just have like a root hatred of WoW. So they're just like borrowed power, and like, yeah, like borrowed power is a problem when it's too much of your power. But borrowed power is necessary when you're making new expansions. It's completely necessary. If there has been 0 borrowed power for the entire... But WoW would actually be dead. Like, it would be dead way before now. Because they kept adding abilities, kept adding talent rows, and they realized they added too much and they had to prune it. Borrowed power systems are a way to make the game more interesting and new and, you know, basically keep it fresh without just bloating us with a ton of buttons, right? They've had a lot of expansions. They've had to iterate on this probably more than other games have. Not all borrowed power is bad. Just like with other things in the game, they swing and miss. Okay? Artifact weapons. Awesome. Borrowed power. Tier sets. The original borrowed power. Something that exists as power gain for a short time that you lose upon the next content release. Now, yes, some of you guys can be like, well, no, Max, you don't quite lose it because sometimes you used old tier and new raids. Very rare in the history of WoW that is actually a thing. But regardless, still borrowed because it goes away at some point. Essences, borrowed power. Fucking awesome. Corruption, even though the acquisition was horrific. Great borrowed power. Corruption made the game better for a lot of people. Case in point, we did a who were the best designed classes. There was more than a few classes that either won or got serious consideration because of how much haste and crit and other stats they have with corruption and ineffable truth that actually made their class objectively more fun to play. Corruption was horrible in the way that you acquired it, but as soon as you had it, it made your class much more fun usually to play than it was without it. That's true. So, just to give you a few things. Legion Legendaries, borrowed power. Acquisition, who would have guessed it, horrible. Borrowed power, unbelievably good. Throughout the entire expansions once you actually had those systems, right? Once you had the ability to do them. So again, you guys are recognizing a pattern. We've talked about this a lot. Bad implementation, bad acquisition, bad accessibility, awesome as fuck system once they figured it out. So maybe something that could go through this whole list is just... we just really, really wish that is the case at the jump. And we're all kind of still waiting for that. So hopefully that becomes a thing. But all of this comes back to tier sets. They tried, and I heard these words. And I was really upset to hear these words. But I basically heard a dev say that domination shards are basically like tier sets. They're similar to tier sets in a few ways. In that they're acquired from raid. There's a certain amount of spots in your gear that are kind of reserved for them. In that way, they are similar. But oh my god, could it not have been wrong in the acquisition and the implementation of them, and the reason why tier sets are good. Tier sets are not good because it's something you randomly loot from raid and it makes you stronger. Case in point, that's what domination shards are, and they're fucking awful, right? You never heard, like, you barely ever heard Mythic Plusers complain about, like, having to get tier from raid, right? But you heard them complain about having to get domination shards from raid because tier was actually really fucking cool. Primary reason, domination shards. You get them. It's impossible to get them, by the way, but let's just say you get them. It doesn't change anything. You just do more damage and healing. And now as we're seeing, which is why this raid is so easy, you do way more damage and healing. Too much more damage and healing. Domination shards are actually, to my knowledge, actually probably a bigger increase than any tier set that's ever been in this game. 2 and 4 set combined. It's an unbelievably large increase. Okay? Or most. Let's just say most so you guys don't start getting nitpicky. Here's why tier was insane. Because within an expansion, class design doesn't change much. There's nerfs, there's buffs, there's, you know, there's like small changes. But the classes are generally the same. Tier sets change the way you play your character. Sometimes it emphasizes a talent you haven't used until now. But like throughout time, if you've used tier sets, it actually changes the way you play your guy. And that is the fundamental reason why tier is great, because every new patch and every new season is actually a different experience in the way you play your character. And the way you experience your character is the vehicle, and why class design is important is that your character and the way you play it and how good it is to play is the vehicle in which you experience the rest of everything else in the expansion. So it's just unbelievably important. Domination shards did none of that. It's embarrassing to compare the two. So need tier sets back. They never should have left. And maybe the most obvious thing you have to ever correlate what I just said is look at the entirety of BFA. World first comp throughout the whole expansion, basically exactly the same. Outside of a few, like warlocks were stacked at the beginning and mages were stacked at the end. But the other like 15 people in the comp, fucking exactly the same. You want to know why? Because nothing changed. Azrai didn't change shit. Tier sets are the things that provide the peaks and valleys to make something actually different through the course of an expansion. And because you tried to replace tier sets, legendaries, artifact weapons, relic systems, and all that shit with just Azerite armor, it probably was the biggest example you could ever get of how you can't replace that much good stuff with basically something really suboptimal. It really, really doesn't help. All right. Flying at max level instantly. I fuck with it. I'm not like super passionate about it, so I don't want to talk about it forever, but I mean, yeah. Talent balancing. The most fun classes in the game at the moment are the ones that have multiple talents that can be picked in any given row. Now, keep in mind that talents are often misunderstood. And most talents in the game are the illusion of choice, meaning that, yes, it appears like you have a lot of choices, but in reality, you don't really make a lot of them, and if you do, they're for very basic reasons. Right? Like, for example, sometimes your row might be you pick this in AoE, you pick this in single target. That's kind of boring, you know? You want cool talents that change the way you play your character. Now, not every row is going to be totally transformative, but it needs to be more unique than it is. Some classes have talent pick rates of over 90% in all scenarios in talent rows. That has to be fixed. And the only way I think that it hasn't been fixed in the past is that they're understaffed. That's always been my case. Because I don't know how many people work on talents, but let's just say you had like 15 people and their only job was to balance talents. Now that might be a lot for game development, but what you would do is you would look at data, you would see what classes are picking what talents, and then very simple, you pick the talent that's not picked in that row, either change it, or if you feel like the concept is cool, it's just undertuned, buff it by 100%, or buff it by 10% a week, until it's too good and it starts getting picked all the time, and then nerf it a little bit. And get it to the point where people are picking between the 3 talents in their row pretty frequently based on the scenario and based on fun, maybe, right? Like whichever one you like more. Give people more options. They already have that available in the game. Their talent rows, if you look from left to right, maybe you haven't noticed this, it is passive and then a mixture of passive and on use and then on use. You already have it set up to where in every row you basically have the option to pick a passive talent or a on use. So just make them more interesting choices. I think would be the vibe, you know? Don't have to wait for a new patch. Hotfix that shit on the weekly. I think that's all I have there. One thing they're actually doing that's insane. I want to give a shout out to Blizzard. Because is this coming in 9.1.5 when they're doing they're doing like 2 weeks of Legion Mythic Plus time walking, and it's also going to give you credit towards your vault? I feel like that hasn't been talked about enough. That's fucking awesome. That's so cool. That is so cool. Like, that is so fucking cool. Forget about the dude. I don't give a fuck about the gear. Like, I mean, it's nice that like you still can like farm gear from it like you would from Mythic Plus, but you know how fucking cool that is? To have like little mini seasons within a season where you can go for a 2-week stretch and just grind dungeons from an old expansion just pushed up with time. You know how fucking cool that is? Except it's only one time? Bullshit, dude. Bullshit. You know what's going to happen? They're going to release it. If people love it, they're going to do that shit for MOP. They're going to do that shit for WAD. They're going to do that shit for BFA. They might fuck around and do that shit for BC. Right? This is an experiment, man. It's the first time they're doing it. Right? Now, there was no Mythic Plus in BC, so I doubt they'd ever do that. But I could see them doing it in the other ones, though, man. I think they could figure it out. Think of it as the beginning. If they want to iterate on it, this is just such an unbelievably good idea for them. Right? Why wouldn't you make it a permanent feature instead of seasonal? Maybe they could. Maybe they could, man. Maybe instead of a nice seasonal thing, every time there's a new Mythic Plus season, there's 2 different leaderboards. There's live leaderboards, and there's a legacy Mythic Plus leaderboard. Every single season, they redo a new expansion. That'd be fucking dope. Or just add like a couple of of the best dungeons from it to the current pool, right? Something like that. The items would be so hard to balance. Yeah, I know. Take time and do it, though. And also, if it's not balanced, it's equally unbalanced for everyone. We just want to play the game, man. Give us more shit to do. Keep iterating on Mythic Plus time walking. Yeah. All right, so there's a bunch of small things. I'm trying to keep it to the guys. Am I thinking of big stuff? I think flying at max level instantly, dude, honestly, I feel like that doesn't belong to be on here. Like yeah, is it something, but like let's focus on the big shit. We'll add that shit later. Let's focus on the big stuff. I don't really care too much about the flying thing. Oh my god. Cross realm rating. Hey, Blizzard, hold up. Let's actually do a little checkup. Alliance, Sanctum, Hall of Fame. 56 guilds. 56 guilds. So cross-realm rating does not come out until 100 Alliance and 100 Horde guilds have finished it, which is just... I have an issue with that. It's just some random arbitrary ranking. It doesn't like no one like is going home and just being like, wow, we made Hall of Fame. Like, dude, Alliance Hall of Fame's a joke. Now, if you... Okay, actually, here, leave the Hall of Fame in. Nothing wrong with the Hall of Fame, I guess. It's a little... I mean, no one really cares, but like, it's here, you know? Leave it, whatever. Just don't make anything tied to it. Like, clearly, Horde and Alliance are not balanced, and they won't be forever until you let them play with each other, right? So, just, hey, real quick, just have cross-realm rating available as soon as one of them finishes. Or just at 2 months after the raid comes out. You know, it'll have more people play your game. Some people's, like, guild dies, and they have nowhere to go, and they're not going to transfer, but maybe they could join the group finder and go raid with this other guild on a different realm. They can't do that right now. That's option number 1. Now, here's option number 2. You guys remember that Chinese guild? Last patch that carried like 13 people and sold the last 10 spots in the Hall of Fame and logged on their characters and did it? Just let them loose. That's option number 2. Just fucking let them do their thing. Just give them the go ahead like you guys can do. They'll fill this shit up in like 2 weeks. They'll do 50, they'll do like 44 of them in 2 weeks and we'll be done with it. So there's 2 options. Oh. Raid buffs. Fuck raid buffs. All of them. PI, Battle Shout, you know, like Fort. Like no one cares about that. They put that in the game to like give certain classes like, you know, it's like part of the lore. Like this class has always had Fort. I get it. Like classic players were coming back. You wanted to make the game seem like that. But my only suggestion would be this. If I would prefer that all raid buffs are gone, because when I make a raid, I want to make it as creative as possible. I don't want there to be classes that are just automatically included because of bullshit debuffs and buffs. But this does not affect raid that much because you have 20 spots. Usually only 6 to 7 of those are required. So you actually have a lot of room for creativity, and I don't think they're going to get rid of raid buffs. So I offer a solution. In Mists of Pandaria, when you zoned into a dungeon, you got Fort, Mark of the Wild, Battle Shout, and every other buff that was there during that time. When you went into a dungeon, you just got every buff. Why is that not the case now? In 5-man content, why does your comp center around the buffs you bring to the group? That's ridiculous. It's too impactful for such a small group number. I think they should absolutely bring that back. You never want to be in a situation where you're bringing the buff and not the player or the person. That's just bad. Or just bring back scrolls. What was the point of bringing back scrolls? That was just making the game more restrictive, right? It was making it to where it became harder to bring the person or player you actually wanted to because you needed this specific thing that some class gave. Do you really think people care enough about that cool, intricate decision than it does actually negatively? There's no fucking way. That just ruins class diversity if raid buffs are global. I feel completely the opposite of that. I feel like it ruins class diversity by buffs being there in the first place. Oh. Okay, I'm not sure if I'm going to type this one, but how do you guys feel about bonus rolls? Now, let me give you some background. The last 2 expansions had Titan Forging. And because of Titan Forging, the way that the system worked is they needed to increase the amount of gear you got just because sometimes you would just fucking flip a coin and you would get some crazy item. Okay? So that is why there was so much quantity of loot. That's why bonus rolls were a thing. That's why You know, you get it, right? I mean, bonus rolls existed before Titan Forging, but, you know, it was around the same time. My only thing is, in this expansion, they clearly reduced a lot of the, like, random bullshit that was happening in the game, and they wanted to make gear the grind again. They wanted to make it so, you know, you would just grind to get the best gear. Like, gear was the system that took a long time to get, which a lot of people would have admitted is better. A lot of people think back in the day when it took forever to get gear that was their favorite time in WoW, but maybe it wasn't exactly the super long thing to get gear. Because what bonus rolls does is it just makes you get your best items way, way, way faster. And is that actually what people want? I'll use the Diablo analogy again. If you zoned into a Diablo season, and which, you know, Diablo kind of sucks, Diablo 3, but, you know, seasons are kind of fun to play with your friends for like 1 or 2 days when the season comes out. If you were to start a Diablo season and log in and be max level with the best full ancient gear and perfect rolls, you would play the game for 2 or 3 hours, do your highest rift, and then you would stop. Everyone. You would stop. The fun in that 2-day season, probably not the best example because it's something you play for 2 days and then stop, is acquiring gear. That game is infinitely fun as long as you're getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And then it reaches a point where it's, instead of getting a ton of upgrades every 10 minutes, it starts becoming the case where you're farming for 2 hours just for like a stat upgrade. And that's when the game becomes less fun, and that's when they lose a ton of their players. The point of all of this is, so what's fun in that scenario is getting stronger and obtaining gear. Now, if you were to slide the scale all the way to the top in WoW, to where you logged in and in 2 weeks every single person had perfect gear, is that really what we want? Because most of the fun of playing WoW is acquiring that gear over time. So the real question is, where exactly does the slider go? Do you put the slider all the way to the beginning? Or do you put the slider all the way to the end? Slider at the beginning means it takes fucking forever to get gear. Slider at the end means you're geared instantly. Where is the correct spot? Most of the time, it's usually right in the middle. But that's where bonus rolls come into play. Let's just say right now, it's in the middle. It's in the middle. Bonus rolls is going to make it go to here. Bonus rolls makes it way easier to get the items you want. So the question is, they already released this expansion with lower gear. You got less gear from raids than you've gotten in like 6 years, right? So the question is, do we need to get gear faster than we get right now? And if the answer is no, then you probably don't want bonus rolls back. But if the answer is yes, then we probably want bonus rolls, right? Probably not. All right, well then, I'm not going to put it on the list, but I think the conversation's at least interesting. Because so many players don't know what they want, you know? Right? That's why I think like Blizzard needs to listen to feedback, but mainly only because they've been bad at doing it on their own. I actually think the best content exists when the person who's making it does it and pretty much doesn't listen to their community, if they're really good, right? I think the best content creators on Twitch are the people who make their own content and they don't give a fuck what their chat wants, but the chat is there to appreciate them, right? And do what they do. The best content creators do that, right? So I believe it's the same thing in gaming and in all product creation. People who basically, like, obviously you pay attention to what your consumers want, but you do what you think is best. You don't just, you know, if any company or video game ever just listened and answered to every single thing every single person in the community said, it would be dog shit, right? So it's just that Blizzard has done such a bad job in most things at doing it. It's just like, okay, can you please listen to us because this is dog shit, right? So it's enough to where, yeah, I'm not giving an example of Blizzard. I'm giving an example of how it probably should be in something successful. Because of that, it's weird. Because like I said, they probably have a lot of people screaming, we want raid buffs, or sorry, we want bonus rolls. But do you really want bonus rolls? Like, do you really want to be full bis one more month into a season? Is that going to reduce the fun you have? For a lot of people, it would, right? Now, this is one that doesn't affect me, but I think affects a lot of other players. Something I've found interesting in Final Fantasy is I feel like WoW is majorly losing a ton of their market share because of two specific things. And they both kind of fall along the same lines, which is they don't make enough content just for the sake of being fun. Like every bit of content in WoW has a system to it and there's player power tied to it. When was the last time there was something in WoW that was just like you just went there and it was fun as fuck, you know? There's been things like that. Like maybe the first time the Brawlers Guild came out or something, you know? Trials, yeah, like, but nothing like the gold saucer in Final Fantasy is cooler than like pretty much everything that WoW has ever made in terms of fun, right? It's just like a little fucking casino in that game where there's a bunch of different little mini games, and it's not like gambling. Like the house always loses. Like if you just go, you could just infinitely do. Like if you just go to some there's like the actual like currency part of it is irrelevant. You could just go to a slots machine and you'll always make more than you put in, right? It's just like a fun little fucking thing. And then, yeah, people in WoW are saying Dark Moon Fair. Dude, if you had any idea how wrong and off you would be by ever comparing the Golden Saucer to the Dark Moon Fair. Like, I mean, that's just, it's, if only you knew how fucking ridiculous that comparison would be. And the other thing to go with that would be player housing. You know? WoW, Final Fantasy has a whole ass endgame in house design. It's like a huge part of that game. That's been in almost every MMO, man. People would fucking love, casuals would love that shit in WoW. So this is not really something I care about as much, but something that even I noticed while playing Final Fantasy is that WoW just needs to make more content for fun without worrying about the systems being tied to player power.